The roof split. A beam plunged. Kazu threw himself flat against the wet stone.
These hands, they aren't mine. Where am I? What happened to my body?
Another lurch. A cascade of broken masonry forced him to scramble deeper into the ruin. In a puddle of rainwater, he saw a stranger's face. The jawline wrong, the eyes someone else's.
That's not my face. My knowledge, the engineering, it's still here. But this body...
Amid the rubble, a rusty claw hammer lay half-buried, its grip splintered but solid.
A hammer. Load distribution. Fracture lines. I can work with this.
He swung the hammer into a cracked stone. The block slid free, and he wedged it under a sagging beam. The groaning settled, but the tower was a web of loaded fractures waiting to cave.
No food, no tools, just a hammer. But I know how things stand. I won't die twice. The arch is the key. If I take weight off that joint, this entire corner stabilizes.
He tapped the hammer along a rotten beam, listening for hollow echoes where dry rot had eaten the heartwood. The rotten block crumbled. He caught the intact stone before it shattered, a single reusable piece from the ruin.
Every intact block is a wall section. The rubble becomes fill, nothing wasted.
For hours, he worked, ignoring the hunger twisting his stomach, the wind cutting through his thin shirt. He stacked salvaged stones, layering rubble in the gaps, and rigged a sagging plank above his head as a makeshift roof.
Not a house, just a corner that won't cave tonight, and a stack of material for tomorrow.
Dusk fell. He leaned the hammer against the wall and stared at his work, a patchwork shelter that was only a start. The wind howled outside, but the corner held. Kazu curled on the cold stone, exhausted, his mind already drafting the next day's forge.
Fire, nails, then a real door. But first, sleep.
Dawn came gray and cold. Kazu's stomach cramped, but his first thought was fire.
No fire means no forge. No forge means no nails. Without nails, this tower is just a pile of rocks.
He searched the cliff base until he found a dark vein of flint, then swung the hammer and chipped a palm-sized piece free. Kneeling over a nest of dried moss and wood shavings, he struck the flint with the hammer's head. Sparks scattered.
A spark caught. He blew gently, and a thin flame curled up.
He fed the fire with broken beams and set a flat stone beside it. A crude anvil, but it would do. From the rubble, he scavenged a rusted iron hinge and a bent nail. Enough metal for a first batch. He thrust the iron into the coals until it glowed orange, then pulled it out with 2 sticks. Clang, clang. The hammer struck the hot metal on the stone, shaping a crude point. Sweat dripped into his eyes.
6 nails. Ugly, but they'll bite into wood. Tomorrow, a door.
He planed a heavy plank with the hammer's claw, fitted it to the stone arch, and drove his crude nails into place.
Not pretty, but it'll hold against the wind, and anything that tries to force it.
Days later, he lashed a wooden wheel high on a beam, threading rope through its groove, and a bucket of rubble rose, as if weightless.
A pulley. With this, I can move stone alone. The tower will grow 3 times faster.
He packed clay around a hollowed stone, fired it in the forge until it hardened, then poured glowing iron scrap into the mold.
A crucible. I can melt down all the scrap. Real iron joints. The whole structure will be one piece.
The first snow fell silent, blanketing a strong little keep with a chimney coughing thin smoke. Not a ruin anymore. Inside, Kazu stood by the fire, hammer in hand, his breath misting as he surveyed the walls he had rebuilt stone by stone.
It's still just me, but the tower isn't dead anymore. I made something that lasts. Now, how do I feed myself once the snow melts? I can build anything, but I can't eat stone.
The thaw came. As muddy water dripped from the eaves, Kazu saw dark figures trudging through the snow toward his gate.
People, not ghosts. That's a woman at the front, carrying a bow. They're starving, by the look of it.
The woman raised a hand, halting her group 20 paces from the door. Her face was sharp with hunger, but her voice carried clear.
You built this. We've been walking for 2 weeks. We can work, we can fight, we can trade. Do you have room?
She's bargaining, not pleading, but she's desperate. If I let them in, my supplies won't last the week. How many are you? And what's been following you?
12, mostly farmers. No soldiers, if that's what you fear, just the cold and the hunger.
Kazu's fingers drummed on the hammer. Then he pulled the door wide, stepping back to let the broken column pass.
I was worried about food alone. Now I have 12 mouths, but 12 pairs of hands. That's the trade.
The woman with the bow caught his eye, and for a moment, understanding passed between them. The keep was no longer silent. The first days were chaos. Kazu had to turn refugees into a crew, or they would collapse from within.
They look to you, Lien. Can you get the able-bodied organized into work teams and a watch?
I'll take the bow women for patrols. The rest can chop wood, haul stone, or learn the hammer.
At the anvil, Kazu demonstrated forging to 3 farmers whose hands had never held anything heavier than a hoe.
Teaching them costs me twice the time. But once they learn, the forge will run all day.
Lien took the best shooters and drilled them until their arms shook, then drilled them again.
Again, when your life depends on it, your arm won't have the luxury of shaking.
That evening, they shared the first communal meal. A thin stew stretched with herbs, but eaten together.
They're not just mouths now. They're a militia, a workforce. But the food won't last another month.
The keep hummed with purpose for the first time. Yet Kazu knew the walls they were building would need more than stone to hold. Scarcity curdled into anger. 2 men lunged at each other beside the grain sack, fists swinging.
If I don't stop this now, the community ends in a brawl. The next fist thrown at one of us hits me first. We ration together or we starve apart. Choose.
You heard him. Take a breath and get back to your work. This keep doesn't run on empty bellies alone.
That night, alone in the forge, Kazu struck a heated nail rod. The hammer pulled his arm into a perfect arc.
That strike. I didn't aim for that angle. The hammer corrected me.
He held it to the light. A faint, warm pulse glowed through the rust, barely visible, like a heartbeat.
This hammer is more than a relic. It's a tool, a guide, perhaps a weapon. What are you?
You are still down here. The watch saw fires on the northern ridge. Could be nothing, but we need your eyes.
Fires. Then we look. Whatever this hammer can do, I'll need it for more than nails soon.
They climbed to the watch post. A scout pointed a shaking finger north, his voice barely a whisper.
How many? Be exact.
The scout's words came broken. 100 banners, spears like a forest. 3 days' march at most. Kazu stared out. The horizon was a black bristle of pikes, a tide of iron grinding slowly south.
3 days. That's barely time to breathe. But I can make these walls harder than any steel.
He marched to the outer wall and raised the hammer. The runes, which had only pulsed before, now flared white-hot. With a single, resonant strike, the stone drank the light. A web of ancient script spread like veins through the masonry.
It's not just reinforcing, it's transmuting the stone. This wall will hold.
When the glow faded, the wall stood with an unearthly sheen as if cut from a single indestructible block. The settlers stared in awe, but Kazu only saw the dust cloud on the northern road growing larger. A lone rider halted before the gate, a black banner trailing from his spear. The air thickened to silence. The scroll read, "By order of General Van, open your gates, surrender all grain and smiths, and your lives will be spared.
Surrender means slavery. I've rebuilt these stones once. I won't hand them over. Tell your general this. Keep was built by a hammer, not a treaty. We will not open. We will not open. We will not bow.
The messenger wheeled his horse and galloped back toward the black tide on the horizon. The die was cast. Kazu turned to face the settlers gathered in the courtyard, their faces pinched with fear, their hands white on their tools.
They think we are just a ruin. But I've seen these walls drink ancient light. They won't break while we stand. I am not asking you to die for stones. I am asking you to build something that will outlast this storm.
You built this place with one hammer. Now you have 100 hands. Van will break his army on our walls.
A ragged cheer rose. But even as it did, the low thunder of distant drums began to beat from beyond the pass. Dawn revealed a sea of iron. 1,000 spears glinted beneath the overcast sky, and siege towers creaked forward on massive wheels. Inside the workshop, Kazu ignored the drums. He swung the hammer onto the ballista's final iron brace, needing one perfect strike.
A fraction off, and the torsion will snap. Everything I know says the angle has to be perfect. Come on.
The hammer fell. On impact, the metalhead dissolved into a blaze of ancient runes, searing up his arm like liquid fire. Beyond the wall, the war horn screamed. The army surged forward, a wave of steel and flesh rolling toward the keep. When the light died, the iron brace had transformed. Seamless, unbreakable. The ballista hummed with a power beyond mortal craft. Lian burst through the door, bow drawn. The wall shook. What was that light? She stared at the transformed ballista.
It felt like the sky cracked. Did you do that with the hammer? What is that thing?
I'll explain when we're not about to be overrun. Help me wheel this to the wall. The hammer just gave us a chance.
They pushed the ballista onto the battlements, just as the war horns sounded. Below, the tide of soldiers began its slow, relentless surge toward the gate. The enemy wave slammed against the shimmering wall. It held, but a spiderweb of cracks spread across the older section.
The enchantment isn't deep enough. I need to drive the runes into the core, make it one seamless block. But the last time almost broke me.
He raised the hammer. Runes ignited along the haft, drinking the light out of the air, and he struck the wall with a scream. The crack sealed. Stone rippled like water, then hardened into a smooth, unblemished surface. The wall became a single, impenetrable slate. Kazu's legs buckled. His knees hit the stone, and the hammer fell from a hand that had turned bone white.
Kazu, your arm. It looks like frostbite. What is that thing doing to you?
Below, a massive boulder from a catapult smashed into the newly forged wall. It shattered into dust without leaving a scratch.
It's feeding. The hammer draws life to forge permanence. I don't know how much it needs, or how much I have left.
Then we fight with steel, not miracles. You can't pour your soul into every stone. Promise me you'll stop.
He gave no promise. As the enemy retreated to regroup, he slumped against the parapet, staring at the hammer, a tool in a hunger. Night cloaked the keep. Then, a whisper of ropes. Dark figures scaled the shimmering wall. Blades drawn. Lian was the first to react. Her arrow pinned a saboteur to the stone before his feet touched the battlement.
To the gate. They're after the hinges.
Kazu pushed himself off the stone, the hammer cold in his grip. His vision swam, but he stumbled toward the fighting. A dark armored shadow lunged from the stairwell. Kazu ducked the sword, the hammer swinging up by instinct. The hammer struck the breastplate. Runes flared, and the iron shattered like glass, the man crumpling beneath it.
It shatters armor as easily as it shapes steel. A weapon of perfect destruction.
Before the second could raise his axe, an arrow sprouted from his visor. Leon's aim was true. The fight was over in minutes. Lian caught Kazu as he swayed, both watching the last shadows retreat into the dark. The saboteurs had failed, but their message was clear. Van would not wait for the walls to fall. He would destroy the gate. At dawn, the sky darkened with stone. Catapults hurled boulders in a relentless thunder, and the shimmering wall began to fracture. A chunk of parapet blew inward. Kazu was already there, hammer blazing, sealing the breach before the dust settled.
Every strike pulls more. My heart is a drum that's about to tear, but if I stop, they pour through.
Kazu, another crack on the East Bastion. You can't keep this up. You are barely standing.
He was already running, each step a gravelly scrape. The hammer ate light as he drove it into the new fissure. The wall healed, but Kazu's vision blurred. He saw the sky spin, felt the cold talons of the hammer's hunger deep in his bones. Lian caught him as he pitched forward, the hammer clattering to the stone, its runes flickering like a dying candle. Over the noise of the bombardment, a new sound emerged, a rhythmic, grinding thunder. The ram was being readied.
Someone get him inside. Archers to the gate. The hammer's down, but we still hold the high ground.
Kazu was carried down as the fortress trembled. Without his hammer, the walls were just stone. The real test was at hand. Kazu's eyes opened to a dim room. The distant, rhythmic thud of the ram echoed through the stone like a death knell.
They're building it already. A ram that heavy will smash the gate in 20 strikes. I could enchant it, but...
He dragged himself to the arrow slit. Below, the massive iron-headed ram was taking shape, a beast of metal and timber.
If I touch the hammer again, it might take me for good. But I don't need a miracle. I need a well-engineered disaster.
He let the hammer fall to the blanket. The old him, the structural engineer, was the weapon now. Lian found him hunched over a parchment, scratching angles with a charcoal stub, his hand steady despite the pallor.
You should be resting. What is this?
The cliff over the road. The rock there is loaded with fracture lines. If we crack the right spot, the whole face collapses onto the ram. We don't need magic. We need pulleys, a few good hammers, and a diversion to buy us time. No hammer hunger, just physics.
Lian nodded slowly, then moved to gather the workers. The fortress' last gambit would be built by sweat, not runes. They gathered in the map room, the walls trembling. Kazu traced the cliff's fracture lines with a steady hand.
Here, the strata dip southeast. If we wedge iron spikes here and here, a single heavy hammer strike will shear the entire face.
The ram won't wait. As soon as we start hammering, their archers will fill the cliff with arrows. We need a distraction.
That's the cost. Whoever leads the diversion will be the first target. It's a suicide post.
Lian didn't hesitate. She pulled her bow from her back and laid it on the table, her jaw set.
Then I'll lead it. Give me 6 archers and we'll draw their fire from the south wall. Buy you all the time you need.
You are the best shot, without you on the wall. But we can't do this without that diversion. Don't be a hero. Come back.
Within the hour, the cliff team crept out through a hidden postern. Heavy hammers and iron spikes were their only armament. Lian rallied her archers on the south battlement. Across the field, the ram's iron head caught the dying light. Kazu lifted his hammer. Not the runic relic, but a heavy smith's mallet, and nodded. The trap was set. Lian's bowstring sang. Flaming arrows arced into the enemy camp, and the ram's escorts turned. Shields raised. On the cliff, Kazu swung the mallet. Iron shrieked as the wedges drove deep into the fault line. The cliff groaned, then sheared. A cascade of boulders thundered down, swallowing the ram and 100 men in a cloud of dust. For a heartbeat, the defenders cheered. Then enemy arrows darkened the sky, and 2 of Lian's archers crumpled silently. Lian took a shaft through the shoulder, but kept her feet, knocking another arrow with a snarl. A roar cut through the chaos. General Van rode forward, his black armor coated in dust, his voice a blade of rage.
You think a pile of rocks will stop me? I'll tear that gate down with my bare hands. Where is the hammer wielder?
He's mine. If I don't face him, he'll slaughter every last one. The hammer, just a little more. I have to try.
Kazu stepped onto the collapsed rubble, holding the now faintly glowing hammer. Van's eyes locked onto him, and the army fell silent. The duel was set. No walls between them now, just two leaders, a ruined ram, and the fate of the valley.
You hold the forge hammer of my house, stolen from our vault a generation ago. It answers to blood, not skill.
Kazu glanced at the hammer. The runes pulsed faintly, as if recognizing the claim.
Surrender it, and I will spare your people. Refuse, and I will take it from your corpse and salt the earth where they stand.
If I give it up, we live. But without the hammer, we are defenseless. He'll slaughter us anyway.
He remembered the first nail, the reinforced door, the shimmering walls built from nothing.
This hammer built a home when I had nothing. It's not stolen goods, it's the foundation of everything here. I won't hand it over.
Then I'll take it from your corpse and make your people watch as I tear down every stone.
Kazu raised the hammer, its glow steady now, and settled into a defensive stance. The choice was made.
I won't die twice. Everything I built is behind me. If this hammer drinks my life, so be it, but Van falls first.
The two men circled each other on the rubble, the light of the hammer casting long shadows. The valley held its breath. Van lunged, a blur of steel. Kazu parried with the hammer, the impact jarring his bones and sending him staggering back. The general pressed his advantage, raining heavy blows. The hammer's glow flickered with each clash.
He's faster, stronger, but every armor has a flaw, a joint, a seam. I just need to stay alive long enough to find it.
Van raised his sword for a decapitating strike. Under his arm, a gap appeared between the chest plate and pauldron.
There, a fault line in his armor, like a fracture in stone. Hit it with enough force at the right angle.
He feigned a stumble, drawing Van into a wide, reckless slash. The gap opened perfectly. Kazu launched forward, hammer blazing with every drop of life he could spare. The runes screamed. The general's armor shattered at the joint. Van's sword flew from his grip as he crashed onto the rubble.
It's over. Van is down. The hammer is fading, but I am still standing.
A heavy silence fell over the valley. The army stared at their fallen general, the unassailable myth, shattered in the dust. In the silence, a single soldier turned and fled. Then the rout began, a tide of iron washing backward from the fortress. The thud of abandoned siege weapons faded into the mist. The dusty road was littered with spears and shattered banners. Kazu turned from the fallen general and began the long ascent to the tower's peak, the hammer heavy in his grip. Each step cost him. But the silent army below needed to see one clear act of defiance. As he planted the makeshift flag into the stone, the hammer flared. Some residual energy from Van's bloodline, perhaps coursed into the runes. The runes ignited, and a wave of golden light washed over the tower, the walls, the cheering crowd below. The courtyard erupted. Faces that had known only hunger and fear now shone with tear-streaked joy.
We held the wall, and he brought the whole cliff down on their heads. The keep stands.
Above them all, a single flag snapped in the wind. A hammer and compass, stitched in crude thread. The fortress had become a kingdom. And the man who came back from death had given them a home. He descended to the battered outer wall, the hammer still humming. With a single tap, the crack sealed, stone flowing like water. He walked the perimeter, and the fortress healed. Broken merlons reformed, and the fallen battlements rose anew. By the gate, he struck the ground. A new curtain wall emerged, pushing outward, doubling the fortress's footprint in a single afternoon. A new square took shape, paved with smooth flagstones. At its center, a simple anvil as a monument to what they'd built.
This square is for everyone. Markets, councils, forges, all open. We won't hide behind walls alone. We'll build a life worth defending.
Before dusk, riders appeared on the southern road. Not warriors, emissaries bearing banners of their own. Homestead, Eastwood, Southreach, their spokesman knelt. The Forge Kingdom stands. Homestead asks for alliance, not conquest. We saw the light from the tower.
They call it a kingdom. My kingdom. Built with a rusty hammer and a head full of numbers. I never imagined this. Rise. If you are willing to build and defend, there's a place for you here. We don't conquer, we create.
That night, the square filled with strangers sharing bread. The hammer rested against the anvil, its runes a steady, peaceful glow. In the hush before dawn, the kingdom lay still. Mist clung to the expanded walls, and the new flag hung motionless. Kazu and Lien stood on the high balcony, the cool wind tugging at their sleeves. Below, a city stirred from sleep.
Last spring, this was a pile of stones. Now it breathes. I never thanked you for opening the gate.
You thanked me with every arrow you loosed. The hammer built the walls, but people like you gave them meaning.
They watched the light touch the new walls, the anvil monument in the square, the trails of chimney smoke from 50 hearths.
This hammer, it's a gift, but it's also a hunger. I'll have to teach others to use it, so no one person carries the weight alone.
You've already started. The apprentices at the forge, the children at the school, they see the hammer and think, I can build too.
Then it's a legacy, not a burden. We'll need that spirit. Peace is just another structure. Every generation has to maintain it.
The sun climbed, and the kingdom caught the light, gold on stone, on flag, on the anvil at its heart. Kazu's hand rested on the hammer, not as a weapon, but as a promise. Whatever came next, they would build it together. Later, when the celebrations had faded, Kazu walked the empty forge alone. The anvil waited, cold and dark. He lifted the hammer. In the rune's dim glow, he saw the first nail, the reinforced door, the shimmering wall held against an army.
It all started with this. Nothing but rust and a head full of numbers. No magic, just leverage and will.
He brought the hammer down once, a single clear note that rang through the silent forge. The echo hung in the air, then faded. The forge was still. He placed the hammer on the anvil and stepped back, his shadow stretching long against the wall. Through the narrow window, the first light of dawn touched the kingdom's towers, shapes of homes, workshops, a school, all built from that first struck stone. The hammer rested, its runes a steady, warm pulse, a heart beating at the center of the realm, and in the silence, the promise of a new day.